Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Harness Your ADHD podcast. My name is Gia, and this is the first official episode, and I'm so fucking keen. I have been looking forward to this moment for so long, and it's finally here, so let's just fucking jump right into it. Also, by the way, in case you couldn't tell, I swear a lot. I'm probably not going to stop doing that because it's just how my vocabulary is, so if you don't like it, apologies, but I promise the information that you'll be hearing is worth it. Or you can just click off and find another podcast to listen to. So, now the actual content. So, if you didn't listen to my first episode, I've been a personal trainer for about 6 years, and so I thought that it'd be pretty fitting to have the first episode all about exercise and ADHD. So, I'm going to split it up into two sections. So, talking about why exercise is so crucial for managing our symptoms, and then I'll talk about the best forms of exercise for our brains. Actually, it'll technically be three sections because the last bit, I'm just going to talk about some barriers and some challenges that we may face, and then some strategies to overcome those barriers. So, I'm going to go into a little bit of science here, so try and stick with me. I actually find this so interesting, and I feel like for a lot of people, for at least me anyways, knowing the why behind something makes us a lot more motivated to want to actually do it. And like I said, it's also super interesting, so try and stick with me for this next little bit. So the benefits of exercise, also, if you can hear my cat in the background, she's eating, she's living her best life. Hopefully it's not too distracting for you guys. But the benefits of exercise on our brains works pretty similarly to medication. And I just want to preface this by saying I don't want to give the impression that exercise is a one-to-one substitution for medication, because for most of us, it just won't be. Even myself, I personally take medication, and I use exercise to kind of give my brain a little bit of an extra helping hand so that medication is as effective as possible. So exercise takes effect for our brains pretty much straight away post-exercise, which is pretty fucking cool if you ask me. It stimulates new growth receptors in our brains and increases the baseline levels of the neurotransmitters dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And if you have no idea what I just said, that's okay, because all you really need to know that these are the chemicals in our brain that affect our attention and executive functioning, which are two things that we have a ton of issues with when we have ADHD. And just to refresh us, if we don't know what executive functioning is, our executive functions include attention control, task switching, cognitive inhibition, behavioral inhibition, and our working memory. So basically, right after we exercise, these aspects of our lives are a lot easier to control. And over time, it has a compounding effect. So the longer that you do it for, the more of a benefit that you receive. So the better that our attention, our executive functionings get. Now, long term, consistent exercise has even more insane benefits and effects. So it increases our levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a protein that is expressed in the hippocampus portion of our brains, and that part of our brain is affected by ADHD. And this is actually a good thing because brain-derived neurotrophic factor plays a crucial role in our brain's development and plasticity. And this affects our ability to learn, store, and retain memories. So in turn, exercise essentially makes our memory work better, including our working memory and our long-term memory. Exercise also changes the way our slightly underfunctioning basal ganglia works. So the basal ganglia is responsible for a bunch of different things, including our ability to plan, focus, and multitask. You can kind of view exercise as lubrication for the basal ganglia, or transmission fluid or something, which means that our issue with task switching becomes a lot easier to control. So, those times when you need to do something, maybe go cook dinner or something, but you're literally stuck in bed scrolling on your phone, and you cannot move, or even the other opposite end of the spectrum where you're so hyper focused on something and to the point where you literally cannot stop even though you want to. Exercise helps all this. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about our emotional state. So I'm sure you're aware of just how much ADHD affects our emotional state. It can seem like we're totally at the whim of our emotions sometimes, and it can completely change the course of our day if we're experiencing a negative emotion or a perceived negative emotion. Exercise releases endorphins, which helps stabilize our mood and regulate and helps to regulate our emotional reactivity. So endorphins also contribute to the reward experience during exercise, which is really cool because it means that it makes us want to do more of the exercise when we're done, and we create this like beautiful positive loop. So as we exercise, releases endorphins, makes us want to exercise more, and it kind of creates this motivation, this intrinsic motivation. Another way that exercise helps regulate our emotions is by having a positive effect on our limbic system via our amygdala. So the limbic system is responsible for the 5 F's, so feeding, aka appetite regulation, forgetting, which is memory, fighting, which is emotional reactivity, family, which is sexual reproduction and our maternal instincts, and also fornicating, which is just sexual arousal. So our amygdala is responsible for our instantaneous behavioral responses. So what this means is that exercise helps us not have those impulsive emotional responses to people and situations that tend to have us saying and doing things that we don't actually mean, and ending up with this like huge fallout at the end of it, and everyone is affected negatively. Okay, so thank you for sticking with me through all the neuroscience-y stuff. I hope you found it as interesting as I did, and it's kind of given you a little bit of motivation to start moving your body. So now I'm going to go through some examples of types of exercise that is great for our brains. So we'll start with aerobic exercise or cardio. Now, I know, don't all say it once, I know that cardio can seem to be like the enemy to a lot of you. But if it wasn't so good, I promise I wouldn't be mentioning it. So cardiovascular exercise helps reduce our brain fog, improves memory, our focus, emotional regulation over time, also increases our baseline level of dopamine, which we have quite dysregulated levels of. There are so many forms of cardio that you can do. Of course, you've got the traditional, running, but you can hike, swim, cycle, go to exercise classes, high intensity interval training, and team sports also work just as well. And for cardio to have a substantial effect on our brains, we need to keep it up for about 30 minutes at about 60 to 75% of our maximum heart rate, which is pretty easy to find. All you need to do is just subtract 220 from your age. So, for example, I'm 26, so I just do 220 minus 26. And so my maximum heart rate is about 194 beats per minute. And so I want to be at about 60 to 75% of that number. And one last thing as well, if you can do your cardio outside, even better. I'm going to have a whole episode on this topic, but nature is so good for our brains. It's wild. Like, I can't explain. I will explain later on, but it is amazing just the effect of being outside has on our brains and our mental well-being. So the more exercise you can do outside, the better. Next up is one of my personal favorites, which is resistance training or weight training. Lifting weights reduces most of our major symptoms via endorphin release. So I explained endorphins and how they help with our symptom regulation a little earlier on in this episode. It also really smashes our central nervous system, which sounds bad, but it actually helps reduce mental hyperactivity, rumination, and those kind of intrusive thoughts that we get. Essentially, it just tires out our brain enough for it to quieten down a little bit more. And now, aside from the neurological benefits, there is honestly nothing more empowering, especially as a woman, to discover just how strong and capable we are. I find that a lot of women tend to really underestimate their strength, and so realizing their own power through weight training is just the most beautiful thing to see. It's why I love my job so much. Lifting a weight that we never thought we could does wonders for our mental resilience, our discipline, and our self-esteem. Plus, it's also a really good way to socialize and meet new people, which is so important for our well-being, especially because we tend to isolate ourselves a little bit too. So 2 to 5 days a week is all you need to kind of reap the benefits of resistance training. So I highly recommend to give it a go. If you don't like it, that's great. You can find something else. But I find that so many people, so many of my clients have fallen in love with weight training, and they never thought they would enjoy exercise in their entire life. So the next one is also something I'm super passionate about, and it has slightly different benefits, the more intense forms of movement that I've just been talking about. Having ADHD can take a pretty decent toll on our mental health, and we inherently, my cat is just jumping all over my laptop, but we inherently don't have the best natural ability to have a wrangle on our emotions a lot of the time. Yoga and stretching helps thicken the prefrontal cortex area of our brain, which helps us to be a bit more mindful and more emotionally aware. I like to think of yoga as moving meditation. especially when it's done intentionally. And meditation has been proven time and time again, unfortunately, to improve our ability to identify and handle our emotions less reactively. So it has just like a better outcome for everybody who's involved. Yoga and stretching is also being used in mental health and trauma treatment, as it's been discovered that it's super effective in releasing trapped emotions from the body. Now, I know this might sound a bit like woo woo and weird, but it actually has scientific backing. Essentially, emotions are just like chemical reactions in our body. And especially when we're chronically stressed, which so many of us with ADHD are, because having ADHD is just fucking stressful, so annoying sometimes. And these chemicals get literally trapped in our muscles because our muscles tighten up when we're stressed due to cortisol release. And so when we're stressed, our body's kind of preparing to fight something. And then these chemicals get like trapped in our tight muscles. And if we don't release these chemicals, they stay in our body and can actually create like a really toxic environment for our like body over time, and also makes our ADHD symptoms even worse. Stretching helps release these chemicals that are trapped in our muscles and helps us become less anxious at our baseline. I get all my clients to stretch morning and evening, even just like for about 5 minutes. If you have to do it in front of the TV, whatever. I mean, if you can be as mindful as possible, that's great. But doing something is better than nothing, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on. And also, if you can do it outside in nature, it's even better. Such a calming and relaxing experience. I could not recommend it enough. I literally look forward to waking up and going to bed every day because I know that I'm going to wake up and go to bed by stretching. Martial arts is also really popular for people with ADHD, and there's actually like proper reasoning behind this. Learning a martial arts specifically strengthens neural networks in our brain that are responsible for self-control, resilience, and discipline, which also heavily affects our emotional reactivity. It's also really good for improving concentration and therefore attention, memory, coordination, and our fine motor skills. A lot of people with ADHD report that they feel a bit clumsy or they feel a bit kind of uncoordinated. So this is really great in developing those skills. Doing a sport that's also quite repetitive in nature requires structure, consistency, and kind of ritualistic routines. And this helps develop our organizational skills and our executive functioning abilities. Just like weight training, we're so busy focusing on, what the next move is or what our form is supposed to be like, that your brain is forced to enter kind of like a meditative state, which is so amazing for all the reasons I've just mentioned above previously. There's so many different forms of martial arts, so the options are really limitless. Jiu-jitsu, boxing, judo, MMA, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, karate, like just to name a few. There's so many different types, and it's a really nice like bonding and social thing as well. So the last sort of exercise that I recommend isn't a specific type of exercise, but basically any sort of skill-based movement that requires focus, learning challenging skills or movement patterns, and increases our heart rate will be amazing for our brains. So this can include rock climbing or bouldering, dancing of any form, including like pole fitness and pole dancing, gymnastics, acrobatics, and once again, if it can be done outside, even better. And so before I end this episode, I just briefly wanted to touch on the fact that while exercise is so good for managing our symptoms, these symptoms can also be like the exact reason exercise can be so difficult for us, especially when we're starting out. So starting out a workout routine requires some level of organization, especially if you work full-time hours or just like a busy person in general. I always, to kind of beat this kind of need for organization, I always keep a spare change of clothes and shoes in my car, in case I don't have anything clean to wear, like maybe I forgot to do the washing, which I'm very good at doing. I forget to pack my clothes before I left to work because I'm waking up late and I'm just rushing around trying to get my life together. Or even if I've just genuinely forgotten I'd planned to work out that day, gone to work, and then realized I didn't pack anything with me. Having a spare change of clothes and shoes in your car means you'll be ready for any sort of situation, and it'll just kind of reduce or remove that barrier. I also recommend my clients to schedule in their workouts as if you would schedule in like a hair appointment or a doctor's appointment, and treat it as such. Even if you don't have like a personal training appointment or anything, or a class or anything, and it's just you taking yourself out, for a walk or a run or to the gym, schedule it as an appointment and treat it as such. It makes it so much easier to kind of create that habit and create that routine. And also, it's just as important as a hair appointment or a doctor's appointment would be for you. So that is kind of a way to signal to your brain that, hey, this is important. We need to be motivated and actually remember to do this. And if possible, if you can work out at the same time every day / like week to week, creating a routine will help immensely with just being able to stick to it in general. It's not the be all and end all, but if you can, I highly recommend it. Now, actually figuring out what to do once you've, got motivated and committed to a workout routine can be really overwhelming and discouraging. So if you do have the finances, finding a trainer or a class will take a huge mental load off your back. And I feel like you'll also enjoy the experience so much more because you're not worried, am I doing this right? Is what I'm doing even conducive to my goals? And you'll have someone to give you kind of that one-on-one feedback, which can be quite comforting and reassuring. Another thing I want to talk about is like sensory barriers. I feel like it's such a huge thing and no one really talks about it because it can seem like, I don't know, silly or childish or like we're overreacting. But sensory issues are a huge thing when it comes to ADHD. When it's things like, bright lights, the loud music, clanking of people's weights, people talking, the smell of sweat in the gym, your tight clothing, it can all be like really overloading to our poor nervous system, especially if we're tired or we're like anxious to begin with. Noise cancelling earphones are my best solution to this. If you can invest in a good pair, I highly recommend it. It makes a world of difference. And finally, I want to talk about the all or nothing mindset that we tend to have. Any sort of movement is better than nothing, and we're going to have days where we're not feeling it. We're really busy, other stuff has gotten in the way, or we're just like can't be fucked. We're just like low on executive functioning, and all of that is okay. During these times, we need to be so, so kind to ourselves. Shame and guilt kind of encompasses the ADHD experience, and I just want to challenge that so much. If you can't get yourself to do your scheduled gym workouts, that's okay. What can you do? Can you go for a walk? Can you do some stretching? Doing something is always going to be better than doing nothing. And whatever you do, at least it creates that habit or like in your brain that, okay, this is the time that I'm going to be exercising no matter what the exercise actually is. Another strategy that I give to my clients is that if you have a workout scheduled and it's just feeling really overwhelming and just like, you just can't get it done for whatever reason, I highly recommend to go into the workout with the mindset of I'm just going to complete the first exercise, or I'm going to complete the first set of the first exercise. Because again, something is always better than nothing. And I find that what happens is when clients end up doing that, they go to the gym, they do their first set, even though they're not feeling it, they don't want to be there, but they just force themselves to do that one set, then they end up actually getting into the swing of things, getting into a groove, and they end up either like almost finishing or completely finishing their workout. And look, that's not the goal though. Even if you just go in and you do one set or you do one like exercise, better than nothing. Like I said, something is always, always better than nothing. Don't let perfection be the thing that stops you from creating this habit and doing something good for your brain. And if this feeling lingers, this demotivation, remembering your strong why behind why you're exercising in the first place can be so helpful. I always ask my clients what their strong why is behind why they're exercising. We're doing this, for example, we're doing this for a well-functioning brain, for some time to show yourself how important that you are, and whatever other personal goals or reasons that you may have to want to be exercising. So I hope that this episode has inspired you to try out some different sports or types of exercise or forms of movement so you can support your brain as much as it tries its best to support you. Personally, I resistance train about 3 to 4 times a week. I do pole 1 to 2 times a week. I do about 30 minutes of cardio twice a week, and I do yoga every single day. I know that sounds like a lot, but my resistance training workouts never go over, say, 45 minutes. My pole classes are about an hour. Half an hour of cardio twice a week is not a ton, especially when you're used to doing it for so long. And yoga is like quite restorative and relaxing, so I don't consider it as like exercise. It's more like restorative and recharging. And I genuinely notice a difference in my overall well-being if I skip a day. I don't, hate myself or punish myself, definitely not. It's more just like, oh, okay, I notice I'm a little bit more foggy or I'm a little bit more scattered. And I guess I'm lucky in the sense that I genuinely enjoy and just really treasure moving my body. a little bit personal, but I had some like health issues in 2021, start of 2022, and I pretty much like I had no energy, and I was so sick that I couldn't really work out for like probably a good 6 months. I was doing sporadic things here and there, but that experience really just gave me like the biggest amount of gratitude for being able to move my body, because I essentially couldn't, and I didn't realize at the time how much of a like emotional support exercise was. And so now every time I'm feeling kind of demotivated or I just can't be fucked to exercise, I just remember how horrible I felt and just like how badly I wanted to be able to like be healthy enough to move my body again. And so now that I am, I just like really treasure that, and I'm so grateful for that. And I find that skipping workouts just isn't really something that I want to do most days anymore. But yeah, I hope this has inspired you to go and move your body. If you have any questions about this specific topic, please send me a message on my Instagram. So my Instagram is at @GKillenPT. And if you were interested in ADHD coaching or personal training, I do have a few online client spots open. So you can just DM me on my Instagram, again, at @GKillenPT. And we can have a chat. So everybody, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, whatever time of the day that you're listening to this. Be kind to yourself, be patient to your brains, and I will talk to you later.